John, I'm an alcoholic, and I've been sober for approximately 3 years, 9 months, and 18 days. Give or take a few minutes. So I'm here to tell you what it was like and what it's like now. I had a pretty easy childhood. I was an army brat, so I moved around a lot. Basically, had to learn to adjust pretty quick, move around every couple of years. I guess the need to fit in, or the need to fit in with a certain crowd, was always there, because I always had to be that chameleon, to be there all the time and adjust to everybody else, because everybody else had been friends for years, since they were since they were kids, and I was always the odd man out. So it didn't really bother me as much, but it still did, and it was always tough. So it was easy to adapt to anybody and anything. I got really good at reading people, which helped me throughout my life, personally and professionally. My family at home was kind of weird. It was quiet. I mean, I didn't have a terrible childhood, but I wasn't very close with my parents. They were working all the time. My dad had shift work, so you never knew when he was going to be around. And my mom worked her butt off, and so I didn't really see much of them until probably about my teens and whatnot, when my dad got out of the military. But yeah, it was. They still taught me, right from wrong, respect, manners, respecting your elders, stuff like that. I mean, it's not like I was taught any bad lessons or anything like that. I was always taught to the basic morals, but I still, I guess, with that moving around so much, I still, and having to be a chameleon, I ended up going in with the wrong crowd when I entered high school, and I guess that's when things took a turn. My first drink was when I was 13. I was with a buddy of mine. Actually, I'm not going to say my first drink, I'll say my first drunk, because my first drink was when I was like 6, but that didn't really count. Although I did like it. But my first drunk was at 13 years old. I stole a 26er of whiskey, some pretty good stuff according to my dad, and me and my buddy Jay ended up drinking the whole thing in my room one night, and we had a great time. Nobody puked. We didn't wake up with a hangover, and right there and then I felt so good the whole time. I was like, man, I just want this to keep going. So yeah, that's where it started. All my friends in high school, they all wanted to smoke weed and do acid and do mushrooms and stuff like that, and I was always the one that wanted to drink. I would have rather have a case of beer than a couple grams of weed or a gram of mushrooms or something. My drug of choice was always alcohol. And I think everybody knew that, except me.
You remember the first time you ever got blackout drunk, like in your teens?
Oh yeah. First blackout drunk, I'd have to say, is at a buddy of mine. I think I was probably about 15, and his dad had homemade wine, and I drank that and got so smashed I puked all over his basement. I don't remember any of this.
Nice.
And yeah, I woke up in the morning. I just got up and left, and I had the worst hangover. Like I thought my head was gonna split right open. And I got home, and I think I left his house probably about 7:30 in the morning. I got home and passed out, and then I woke up. my friend had called and he's like, "You're such an asshole, man. I had to clean up all your puke and oh yeah, it was pretty bad." So it was probably about 15 when I had my first blackout. I had a lot of blackouts, mostly when I got older. In my teens, I had a few, but I ended up obviously building a tolerance and whatnot. And then later on in life, I was on medication, so blackouts were almost mandatory every time I drank. But in between that, I wish I blacked out sometimes because at least you don't remember it. You know, a friend of mine said, you know, blackouts are great, man. It's like a vacation from yourself. And at first I was like, man, that's a weird thing to say. But then when you really think about it, it's like, yeah, it is, because you're awake, but you don't know it, and it's perfect, right? You can act like an asshole and blame it on the blackout. So
Yeah, I've been there.
I lived in Uxbridge for a while, and things got really bad. You know, I mean, it was good and bad at the same time. I opened up a business in town, and not too long after, I got a DUI, which wasn't very good for my marriage. But I still continued to drink. Obviously, it didn't teach me a lesson, and then we ended up moving from Uxbridge to Barrie, and I thought maybe obviously a geographical change was going to make a difference, but it just made it worse, and I drank more and more and more, to the point where my wife had gone away and with her friend, and the minute she was out the door, I got the kids all ready for bed at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and I went out drinking, and I got a phone call from her, and she said, you know, you better get stuff together, because I don't know if I'm going to want you home when I get home. And I can't say that's a rock bottom, but it was. It scared the crap out of me, because now I was faced with the fact that I might lose my wife, my kids, my house, everything. And got a lot of thinking to do that weekend. And a good friend of mine has suggested that I go to a program and get some help. And I took his advice pretty seriously. My wife got home from her trip and said she'd give it a chance. Although she was pretty leery, but she said she'd give it a shot. And so I went to my first meeting on a Monday night, and it was crazy, because every time I had gone to a meeting, nobody even talked to me, nobody approached me, nobody said hi or welcome or anything. And I went to this meeting, and this person coming up the stairs was like, "Hey, how are you? And I'm so glad to see you." And I was like, at first I thought she was crazy, but that was a good sign, because for me that was like, okay, I'm ready, you know. And man, I'm glad that person showed up walking up the stairs, because if they didn't, I don't know if I would have stuck around, you know, and not even be here telling my story.
You find your mental health improved? You mentioned that you're on medication, blackouts, and
Yeah, I'm also bipolar on the higher end, and basically I've been taking medication for the past 7 or 8 years before I sobered up, and my medication wasn't really doing anything, because I was drowning in alcohol. Not to mention it's scaring the hell out of my wife, because that alcohol and lithium mix could have caused me to stroke out while I was sleeping, could have caused me to dehydrate at any point and have a heart attack or have a stroke. But I didn't care, man. I had to drink, you know, and that's the nature of the disease, you know. It doesn't matter sometimes. You got to pay the ultimate price or close to it to understand how bad it is. And my mental health has definitely improved, but it's a huge adjustment, only because my head's clear. My medication is stabilizing my mood. During COVID, it's been very stressful, and my anxiety physically has taken its toll. And I was smart enough to realize that and book an appointment with my psychiatrist and get that figured out. I'm feeling a hell of a lot better now. If I was drinking, I wouldn't have done anything about it. I would have just like, meh. And I would have drank more and just calm that anxiety.
Do you, what do you think the biggest lesson you've learned now in sobriety that you changed?
The biggest lesson I learned to learn to trust the ones around you that love you. Learn to just be myself. I know for so many years I was never myself. Growing up, I was always having to try and fit in with other people. College, and after college it was still the same thing. I was trying to fit in with a certain type of people. And then when I went into business for myself, once again, trying to, I mean, to an extent you need to kind of, play the role, but I mean, when work is done, the role is over, and, go back to yourself. I love to paint. I painted off and on while I was an alcoholic, and I only painted, I never painted drunk. But I could never really get to the point where I wanted to be as an artist, and now I have, thanks to people in the program that I'm in, who were able to encourage me and make me realize the potential I had. The biggest thing I've learned is that, it's just to trust the people around me, open up. I was very closed in, and I didn't trust anybody. And like I said, I think that had a lot to do with my upbringing. And I'm glad I do now. Some of my best friends are people within this program. I think actually I might have a couple friends outside the program, and they're actually alcoholics, but they look out for me, they're proud of me, they're happy where I go, and they actually encourage me, which is weird. But, it's being sober for somebody who drank for 3/4 of their life, it's not the norm. And I'm still trying to adjust. Sometimes I do or say things, and I almost feel weird about it, like I'm not being myself, but I am. And but it feels good to be sober, man. Like my kids, they're not scared of me anymore. I don't. At least when I yell now, I'm sober, and I actually mean it. But it's. They're not afraid of me. They're happier that I'm sober because now I actually spend time with them and do things with them. I'm not drunk and making a fool of myself. Things haven't been easy with me and my wife, but we're working things out, and I think we're pretty happy. She's a lot happier that I'm sober than when I wasn't. So, that's about it, man.
So, just in closing, would you have any advice to anybody wanting to get sober?
Yeah, do it. I know it's not easy, man. And, the biggest problem I had with getting sober was, what am I going to do without it? How am I going to socialize without booze? How am I going to go camping without booze? How am I going to go over to a friend's house and have dinner without a bottle of wine? You don't need that shit. Just be yourself. The one thing I learned in sobriety is that I'm not alone, man. I'm not the only person, that's an alcoholic. And you know, I'm glad I met these people, man, this fellowship, because you know, that's what I needed. I can't do it alone. I needed the help. I needed other people to help me. And that's the only suggestion I can give you is just, you know, find like-minded people, and you know, they'll help you, man. They're there to help you. Trust them.